Hello everyone, welcome back to another amazing tutorial. This time I'm going to talk about EJS. EJS stands for Embedded Javascript. If you don't have the basics of Node and Express, then this video is not for you. So you can go and watch my Node and Express videos or someone else Node and Express videos and then come back here so that you can understand EJS well. Now throughout this video I'm going to talk a lot about EJS and these are the topics that I'm going to cover. But just like always, this video is going to be a project-based video tutorial, and by building a project we are going to cover these topics that are mentioned here. So by building a project you will understand why EJS, how to pass data to EJS file, how to use if-else loop in EJS file, and what is the purpose of layout in EJS, how to do styling EJS file, and finally we are going to deploy our project in Heroku. So let's start with the first one, introduction to EJS. Before even talking about EJS, you need to know what is templating engine, because EJS is a templating engine. So let's understand the purpose of templating engine. For this you have to understand this scenario where we have a file called index.html where we want to print someone's name and profession. So let's say it's a person named Karim and his profession is a student, and this is something we are printing in index.html. So is our static data something we are printing here? So no problem here. Then let's talk about now if you want to print someone else's name and profession, so you have to change those value again. So those value were kind of static. Now we need to change this static value and we have to use let's say name Rahim and profession teacher. Later on I thought, okay, no, I want to print someone else's name and profession. So every time if I need to change this static value, it's not going to help us here. We have to make this index.html kind of a dynamic so that it can play with any sort of value that we are passing here. And this is the purpose of templating engine. So templating engine basically makes our HTML dynamic so that it can receive any type of value that we pass to this file. So this time let's think like that, h1 name, and this time we are not giving any static value, we are just using it like a kind of dynamic so that we can pass any value here for the name and profession and it will print this name and profession. So this time I can give any name and profession here because we didn't make it static. We kept it dynamic, so it will receive the value and then print the value. So this is the main purpose of this templating engine. Now there are a lot of different types of templating engine out there, but remember the purpose of this templating basically making our HTML dynamic so that it can work with dynamic content. Now as I was saying, like there are a lot of different types of templating engines out there. Besides EJS you have Handlebars, Pug. So the popular one is the EJS that we are going to learn here. So what does EJS do as a template engine? It helps us to run plain JavaScript in HTML so that we can make our HTML dynamic. Okay. Now EJS is very simple compared to others like Handlebars or Pugs. It is very lightweight and fast, and as I said, it is the most downloaded one and the popular one out there for us. Okay, and it was founded in February 2011. So just a few theory for you. Now how to use EJS is very normal. It's a third-party package, so you have to install it by the help of npm or yarn. You can say npm install EJS and then you can set this EJS in your server with the help of app.set. And if you want to load an EJS file in your server, then you have to create that file inside the views folder and then you can render. Now enough of this theory. You don't have to worry if you have not understand anything yet, because we are going to learn everything practically. So let's jump to the practical part now. Now before even moving to the practical part of this video tutorial, I want to demo the project that you are going to build in this video. Here is the demo of the project. You can see it's very basic. This is the header section. Inside the header section we have two menus, home and contact, and in the footer section we have a very basic copyright text. In the main section we have an input field and add button so that we can add any programming language to this unordered list. So let's say I want to add a programming language, maybe JavaScript here. So if I type JavaScript and then click this add button, it will add this JavaScript language in this unordered list. Even though it's a very simple project, but trust me on this, it's going to teach you everything about EJS. So let's start with the practical part now. First of all, we are going to create an Express server, and then we'll learn about EJS. So I need to create a folder. I'm going to open my terminal. Here I'm in my terminal, and I'm going to create a project folder. So I'm going to go to my documents folder, and then I'm going to create a project folder. So make directory and then give a name for the project. I'll say ES project. And then I'm going to go inside this EJS project, and I'm going to open it inside my VS Code. That's all. Now this is something you can do manually by yourself. You don't have to do it in the terminal. So I'm going to adjust the VS Code, and then I'm going to adjust the browser as well so that you can see everything side by side. I'll make it a little bit small and this one a little bit bigger. That's all. Now let's start creating our Node Express server, and of course you know how to do it as well because you have done it quite many times. So I'm going to initialize the npm. This is the first step. Before even using any npm packages, you have to initialize your npm. That's all. Now that we have this package.json, we don't have any dependency here, so let's start some dependency that we need to build this project. First of all, I need the Express package if I want to build Express server. And if I want to play with EJS, definitely I need EJS, but for now, let's keep it like this. Only Express is something I'm going to install. Now, when Express is installed, definitely it's going to come up here. You will see, yes, now our project has dependency, and this is Express. Okay. Now let's start building our project, and for this reason we need to create a file. I'm going to name it index.js. Here I'm going to create my server. Okay, and you know how to create Express server already. So const, then Express, then we need to require our Express package here. Fine. And now let's get the app from the Express. So const app, and then here is our Express. And finally we can listen the server. So app.listen, then you can give a port number here. It's totally up to you. I'm going to give it 3001. And then when the server is running, I want to know that it is running, and that's why I'm using this callback function. And then I'm going to use this console log here so that I can give a message when the server is running or not. So I will say server running, server is running at HTTP, and then I'm going to say localhost. And then finally I'm going to give the port number here is 3001. And now since I'm using this port number, same port number here and here, of course I can keep it inside a variable. So I will say const port, and then I'll put it like 3001 here. Now instead of this static value, I'm going to use the variable, so port. And then finally I want to print the port number here, so I will say underscore and then port. That's all. Good. Now we can run our server for sure. Let's see how to run our server. We can run it with the help of node index.js, but you know that already. If you run like this, then probably, let's say when I make any change, I have to stop and run again. Now we have node.daemon, which is going to watch our changes, and then it is going to show the changes. So let's install the node.daemon as a development dependency. So npm install, then -d, and then node.daemon. Okay, so node.daemon is going to help us to see the real-time changes in our project. Now it should be inside the package.json as a deb dependency, as you can see here. Right. Now I'm going to add one more script here so that I can run this project very well. So start, and then I'm going to say node.daemon. I'm going to run the server from index.js. That's all. So this time I'm going to say npm start, and what it will do, it will run this node.daemon index.js, this script for us. Okay, so let's say npm start, but before even doing that, I need to save it, and now I can say npm start. Now you can see the output here is saying server is running at HTTP this port, and of course this is something we have done here so that we can easily see whether the server is running or not. Now I'm going to click here and let's see whether server is running or not. Now it has opened in a different browser, but you can see it's here now. Well, it's running, but you cannot see anything because it's right now it's saying cannot get, and this is something very normal, but our server is running fine. We have not added any GET request here, so we are not handling the GET request that this client is asking from server. So it is trying to get something from server, but we have not said anything yet how to respond that. So let's add a get request here, and let's handle this get request from here. So this time I'm going to say app.get. If someone requests anything from this root route, then I'm going to say something. I'm going to send any response. So we know that we have request and response object. So these are the two things someone can make from here. So someone can request and then we can respond. So these are two objects for every single request. Okay. Now, if someone use the slash route, which is the home route currently, then what we want to do, we can say here. So maybe I'm going to say response.status, and this time status code will be 200, so it's a successful status. And then I can send anything, maybe any string, maybe any HTML file, maybe any JSON. So it totally depends on me what I want to pass from here. I'll keep it very simple. I'll just pass an h1 tag here. So I will say h1, opening h1 and then closing h1. Inside this h1 I'm going to pass some text. I will say welcome to EJS. That's all, welcome to EJS. Now let's see whether it runs perfectly or not. So you can see the output after just reloading. It's working fine because of this node.js thing. We didn't need to stop and run again. Node.js is helping greatly here. Okay, now that we know how to create this server, how to load something in the server, or how to handle this get request, now we can start playing with our EJS thing. Now we can create an index.html file. Of course, let's create the views folder first of all, because if you want to play with EJS, you need this folder called views. And inside the views folder, you can start building your HTML file. Let's say index.html, but we are learning here EJS, which is kind of similar to HTML, but here something will be different for sure. It's going to be dynamic HTML. But if you want to create an EJS file, make sure the extension is .ejs. So let's create the EJS file and let's render it into our server. So we are going to learn this time how to render an EJS file. Now, how the EJS file is structured, it's basically just our pure HTML. Now you can see everything is here HTML. I'm creating a basic structure. Now let's create an h1 here, and let's say this is the homepage. Welcome to homepage. That's all. Welcome to homepage. Now instead of this h1 tag here, I want to load that index.ejs file here in the server. Now, what can I do to do this task? Of course, I need to install the EJS package. So let's just install the EJS package. I'm going to say npm install EJS. This will install the EJS package that we need. And now what we're going to do, to render the EJS file. Of course, remember that we have a beautiful documentation of EJS. You don't need to memorize anything, because if you go to this documentation, you will see how to start. So let's get started. You can install EJS. And then if you want to use this EJS, you have to do some other task. Now, there are a lot of instructions there already for you. You can go through and you can learn, but I'm interested about using EJS with Express. So I'm going to go this file here. So I'm going to click this link. Now you have everything that you need to do inside the Express. You have to use npm install EJS so that you are installing EJS. We have done this part. And then let's use this EJS inside our server with the help of this command. So I'm going to copy this command and then paste it here just after the port. Remember, it needs to be here before any get or post or any type of HTTP request. So now we have set the EJS as a view engine for our project. And what does this view engine do? It try to look at this views folder that you have created, and if there are any EJS file, it will try to access that EJS file. Now, how to render the EJS file? It's already here. You can see there is a demo for you. You have to use this render function. Inside the render function, you are going to name the EJS file that you want to render, and then if you want to pass some data, you will be able to pass data, but this is something we'll look later on. Right now we are just interested about loading or rendering our EJS file. Let's just do it. We know that we have to use a function called render here for rendering the EJS file, and then inside this double quotation we have to tell the EJS file name that we want to render. So I am interested to rendering my index.ejs file. Now here you are going to say only index. You don't need to add the extension, remember this. So you are not going to add the extension here. And as the second parameter, you can pass some data, but we are going to leave it like empty object right now because we are not interested about passing data right now. So if I just save it and then if I reload it, you'll see welcome to home page. That means it is perfectly loading our index.ejs file here. That's brilliant. Now that you know how to render EJS file, this time I'm going to teach you how to pass data to your EJS file so that you can make your things dynamic, because right now it is just a basic HTML file and you don't see any real difference here. So let's say I want to pass the page title here with the help of EJS. This is something we can do, of course. So here, instead of document, I want to say maybe homepage. Now think about this, let's create another file here and name it something. I'm going to say contact.ejs. So this is the contact file I'm creating, and this is the basic structure of this contact file. And here I'm going to say the title is contact. So different time I'm using different type of static value, but I want to help, I want to get the help of EJS and I want to make them dynamic. So when I'm rendering this EJS file, I can pass their title, page title, as a data from here. So let's do it. I'm going to remove this and I'm going to receive some data inside this EJS file from the server. And for this reason, if you want to use variable in EJS, you have to start with something like this. I'm going to show you here. So the syntax is here, remember. So starting with this and ending like this. That's the syntax of EJS variables. And here we can receive any data with the help of variable name. So let's just follow this syntax and get the page title from the server. Here I'm going to say, I'm going to start like this. I'm going to end like this. This is the syntax. Of course, I have to use this percentage. And here you can give any variable name. It's totally up to you. I'm going to say page title. That's all. And now let's just load this page title from the server. We can send the data from here to the index.ejs, or which is our HTML file. So if I reload it right now, I will have error for sure because I have not passed the page title data for sure from the server. Now remember, this name has to be exactly same. So in the index.js or in the server, when we are trying to load this home page, the index.ejs file, we want to pass some data to this page title. So I will say this page title, it needs to be exactly same, and then I can pass some data to this page title variable. So let's say home page. This is the home page, and if I save it, if I reload it, it should be working. You can see its home page title is here. And right now you have learned how to pass data from this server to the EJS file with the help of this syntax, this variable syntax. Now I can do the same thing for the other one as well. So I can copy from here, go to the contact and then paste it here. So instead of the static value, I'm going to send some dynamic value from this server. But here I want to add one more tag, at least h1 tag, saying welcome to contact page, so that we know when we move to a different page or not. Okay. But I didn't create any route for this /contact thing. So let's create a route here. I'm going to copy and paste down below. This time I'll create a route, contact route. So if someone, type here /contact in the browser, let's say /contact here, then I want to take that person to my contact.ejs file. So this time I'm going to render not index. I'm going to render this contact.ejs file. So this is the file that we created, contact.ejs, and page title I'm going to pass this time contact page. That's all. So if I save it and let's see whether it works or not. If I press contact here, if I type contact and then enter, you can see it's saying contact page here as a page title, and also you can see the heading tag here, welcome to contact page. Now we have learned how to pass data from server to EJS file. It's working brilliantly so far. But I'm interested to pass some data related to programming language because we want to create a project like this, right? So let's just do it. Here I'm going to create an array. So the array name can be anything, it's totally up to you, but I will make it, maybe with the help of let, and then I'm going to say programming languages. So let's say programming language names here, PL names, which refers to programming language names. And then I'm going to give some dummy value here. So let's say C and then C++. So these are two values that I want to pass to my index.ejs file. Now, how can we pass? Of course, we can add more here, more properties here, and then we can pass. So I can say programming language name. So I'm going to use this name that I'm going to use from other places as well. So the name can be here different. It's totally up to you, but I will keep it same. So I want to use this name and pass the data with the help of this name. Now, what are the data that I want to pass? I want to pass these data. So I'll just copy the name from here and then pass the array name. That's all. Now you can use different name here. It's totally up to you, even though they all look same, but the purpose is different. So this is the one I'm going to use in index.ejs file for accessing this array. That's all. Okay. Now let's just access the value from index.ejs. Now, how can we do it? Of course, we can do it very easily, surely. But before even doing anything here, I want to create some basic structure for my home page. And here I'm going to create the basic structure. I'll create a header. Inside header, I'm going to have some navigation option. Under the list have one hyperlink tag. Here I'm going to say it's for home, and then the other one is for contact, just like the demo. So here I will say contact. That's all. So the header section is done. Then I'm going to create the main section. Inside the main section, definitely I'm going to have an input field and form. So I can create the form, but right now I'll just leave it like empty. I'm going to say maybe, let's say this homepage thing here. And then I'm going to create a footer at the end, just like the demo. So footer will have some copyright text. I will say copyright by Anisul Islam. That's all. Anisul Islam. That's all. Now let's see whether we can see the output already. So I'm going back and I can see the output. Okay, I have this basic structure. Now I'm going to copy everything from here, and then I'm going to paste everything there, and I will change few things for sure. I'll change the home instead, I'll put this contact thing here. That's all. Now we have two different page, home page and contact page, and both of them are working fine. Now we wanted to get the data that we are sending from this server. So we are trying to send this array to this EJS file, index.ejs file, with the help of this name, PL names. So let's go to this EJS file and access this data that we are trying to send from the server. Now I'm going to create an unordered list. Inside the unordered list, I'm going to create a list. And inside this list, I want to access the array, at least the first value from the array. Now the first item of this array is C. So how to access the array? You must know from your JavaScript knowledge. You can say PL names, then index 0. For accessing the next one, you will say PL names index 1. So we can use that thing here. We can say PL names, and then we can say index 0 for sure. But right now we are inside an index.ejs file, and we are trying to access some JavaScript dynamic thing. So we need to use our previous syntax that we used here. For accessing any variables value, we have to use this syntax. So let's just use that syntax one more time. I'm going to say starting here with this syntax, and I'm going to end our structure here with this syntax as well. So this is the syntax we have learned for accessing values from any variables. So let's just see whether it works or not. You can see it's already working. It's saying C here. I can access the next one by the help of this syntax again, and I can see the value is already here. So we know how to pass data to our EJS file already. Now, in the next, I'm going to teach you if-else, how to use if-else in EJS. This is something important in our project. If there is some data inside the array here, if there are some data exists, then we want to load this unordered list or render this unordered list. If there is no data in the array, then of course we are not going to render our list here. So we need to do some condition checking here for sure. Now that we know what we want to do here, if there is some value inside this programming language names array, then we want to render this list. Otherwise we don't want to render anything. It's very simple. So we want to make a condition here. So let's just get rid of this thing. I will just copy and paste it, cut it from here so that later on I can use them. Here I'm going to create an if condition. So if already inside the programming language names array we have some data, so I'm going to check the length. So if there are some data available, then I want to display these things. Otherwise I don't want to display these things. Maybe I will display another message here with the help of this paragraph tag. I will say no data available. So no data available. That's all. This is the simple thing I want to do here. Now this is pure JavaScript, and we can use pure JavaScript inside the EJS file. There is no problem, but we have to follow some syntax for using this JavaScript thing. Now for the variable, you have seen the syntax already. This is the syntax for variable. You have learned it so many times. Here also we have used the same syntax. But for JavaScript things like if else, for loop, we have to use another syntax. So let's learn that syntax, how to use. It's very simple, similar to variable syntax, but this time we are not going to use the assignment operator. So get rid of the assignment operator. This is the syntax. Here I'm going to start for the JavaScript. This is the JavaScript that ends, and at the end I have to close it. So same thing will happen everywhere wherever you are using JavaScript syntax. Now we don't have anything to do here, nothing to do here, but this is another JavaScript syntax. So I have to use the same syntax, EJS syntax here. So I'm going to start like this, and then the operator symbol here, and then the percentage symbol, and let's just close it. So there is nothing I have to do here, but again I have this JavaScript curly brace, so I have to use the same thing syntax just like others. So I have to use this percentage. So anything for JavaScript, you have to start like this and then you have to end like this. That's all. Okay, so if I save it and let's just reload it, so nothing problem here because we have some data already, and that's why it's showing C and C++. It's rendering here. But what will happen if I just remove these data things from here? So there is no data right now. If I reload it now, you can see no data available. So basically this if else things working perfectly. This P paragraph tag is working. So else part is working because right now there is no data inside this PL names array, and the length is 0, and that's why we can see it's not working. It will work only if the length is 1 or if there are some data exist. Okay, so this is the else part is working right now. So now that you know how to do the if else thing in EJS, now let's start with loop here, because it's very important, because we are repeating here again and again. So PL names 0, PL names 1, then we could have like PL names 2. So we are trying to access all the item from the paragraph, from this programming language names array. So let's say, if I put some value here, C, then I'm putting more value C++, then I'm going to say Java, and then I'm going to say Python. So these are 4 items inside the array, and I want to print them like this. It's kind of a hassle here. Now we can take the advantage of for loop that we have learned, because we need to change the index number only. So we can run a loop from 0 to maybe 4, 0 to 3, and then print all the index number here, put all the index number here, and print the value of this array. So let's just reload it right now. You can see everything here, it's working fine. But instead of like repeating these sort of things, I want to use the loop here, and it is very simple. I'm going to cut it inside this if else. I'm going to use a loop. You know how to use the loop already. So I'm going to create a variable x, or I can use I for holding the initial value, which is going to start from 0, and then I want to run this loop until the length of the array. So I need to say here the length of the array, because if I say here 4, then what will happen when there are like, let's say 8 items in my array? It's not going to work as I expected. So I will say programming language names dot length. So it will run until the length of the array. and then I'm going to make the I++ here. I'm going to update it, so it will start from 0, it will run until the end of the array. That's all. And now I can paste the list things here. Now this time I'm not going to say 0 because I'm going to use this index value I. So I will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, you know how to do, how to use loop in JavaScript. Otherwise, you won't understand anything here. So that's all. We are done. Now, if I even reload it, it's going to work. But no, it's not working because we are using JavaScript again here. So if you use JavaScript, you know what you have to do. This is the syntax you have learned already. So you have to start like this, and then you have to end just like this. So at the end here, I'll make it a little bit smaller. Now you can see, okay, so percentage symbol, and then end here with the angulars, and then again open here angular, and then percentage, then end here as well. So because this is the curly braces, something from JavaScript, and that's why we have to do it like this. Now if I reload, everything is going to work as expected. Now that we have done quite many things, you know how to use if else, loops, or whatever the JavaScript things we did here with the help of this syntax should be very clear to you. Now what I want to do, I just don't want to use these static things. I want to add a form, and with the help of form I want to give some value input, and then add the data in this list. This is something I want to do right now. Now it's going to be very simple. You don't have to worry, you can do it for sure. So let's just create a form inside this EJS file. So before another list here, I want to create a form, and this form is going to be very basic one. This time we are going to use the post method because we are going to post some data to the server. So from here I will create an input field, I will give some data to this input field, and then post it to the server. Then the server will receive the data and add the data to this array. That's all. And from that, we know how to, already we have done everything for rendering our data in this unordered list. We have done everything. We don't have to worry about that. Why? Because this index.ejs here is working, just like the dynamic way. If there is some data already inside the programming language names array, it will work, it will load. And how it's going to work? The for loop will check everything that available in this programming language array. So if there are 6 items, 8 items, doesn't matter, it's going to list all the data. So everything is ready here, there is no issue. But right now we have to create a form here and send the data to the server, and the server needs to add the data to this array. That's all we want to do. Now this time we are going to do the post request, and which route I want to do this post request, I'm going to use the same. So in the home route I'm going to do this, but we don't have that post request handler here because we have only get request handler for home route. So I'm going to copy and paste and create the post request handler here. So this time I have to say app post, and then I can receive the data. Okay, so let's just receive the data for now. So how we are going to receive the data, you know that already how to receive the data, but for now I'll just keep it like this. Response status, I will say it's a 201. So if something is created, then we know it is 201, and the status code is 201, and then I will say send. I will say data is created, maybe that's all, data is created. Okay, we have some error here because I wanted to say response, that's all. So when the post method is done, when we are sending some data from the form, it will say data is created, that's all. Okay, we are not receiving the data yet, we'll do that later on. So let's start here by building the form. I'm going to create an input tag here, and in the input tag I can use a placeholder here for sure, and this placeholder is going to say enter programming language, enter a name of programming language, whatever. So it's totally up to you. And then I'm going to use the name property here, which is very important. Of course, I'm going to say programming language name. It is the exact name that I'm going to use to fetch the data in the server. So be sure about this. It needs to be exactly same something you are using, then of course the same thing you have to use in the server as well. You can use any value here, but this value has to be same in the server as well when you are trying to fetch the data. And then I'm going to add a simple button here. Button is going to say add data maybe, or that's all. Okay, and then I'm going to make it like submit type. So when we submit the when you click the button, the form data will be submitted in the slash route and this time it's going to be post method. That's all. Now that we have our form, let's just reload and let's see. Yes, it is here. I can enter a name of programming language here and then add data here for sure. But I want to add some, styling here for this input field so it looks a little bit better. So how to do styling? So let's learn about how to do styling. We can do styling, of course. We have maybe already you have learned it inside, your root folder. You are going to create a public folder here. And inside the public folder, I'm going to create another folder called CSS. It's totally up to you what you want to name. And then I'm going to make it like style.css file here. Now inside this style.css file, we can start styling our things here. What I'm going to do some reset code, and I want to see whether it's going to work or not. So I'm going to say box sizing, border box, and then I'm going to say, let's say list style type, maybe none, but I just want to keep it like this. I will say text decoration none. So text decoration none. Then I'm going to say margin and padding 0. So margin 0, then padding 0. And then that's it. I will keep this style for the universal selector, and I want to see whether it works or not here. But right now it's not going to work because we have not added this style to our EJS files. So this is the index.ejs file where I want to add this style at the beginning, and then I will start applying the same style in the contact.ejs. But let's just check it here whether it works or not. So this time I'm going to say style. Of course, this is not something is going to work. We want to add our CSS. So let's just use this link CSS. Now, where is this style.css file is? It's inside this public folder, then inside the CSS folder. But if you want to use anything static in your Express server, then you must know this. You have to use a middleware. And what is that middleware? It is app.use. And then here you are going to say express.static, because something static we want to use. From where? You have to say the folder name here. We are going to use the static file from public folder. Now that we have set up everything, we can say, okay, we have something in the public folder, and then from where? From CSS folder, we have to use our style.css. And that's all. Now, if I reload it, let's see. Yes, it's working fine. So our styling things is working great. Now let's make a small style here, apply those style header, main section, and then footer. We have 3 different parts here. So I can go to the CSS file and I can start designing them. So maybe for header, I will set a background color. I will say it's hash, then probably 2C, 2C, and 2C. And then I will add some padding. So I'll say the padding is maybe 1 rem at the top and bottom, 2 rem at the left and right. And let's see whether it is applied or not. So yes, it is applied. Then I'm going to change the color of the text maybe. So I'll say color is white. And of course, these are links and it's not going to be white. Of course, we have to make them white. Now we can add some classes there, but I'm going to use everything directly. I don't want to make it complicated. So I will say inside the header maybe, or I will say inside the neighbor we have this a tag, and I want to make them color as white. So their color will be white. If I reload, yes, you can see they are white, but they are now not side by side. I want to bring them in the center and make them side by side. So they are already inside the navigation. So if I say, if I select the navigation, or let's see where are they actually. So let's go there. And now I can see the unordered list is the parent of all lists here. So if I select this unordered list, it's going to work fine. I will say display flex, and that's all. I think let's see whether it works or not. Yes, they are now side by side. Now each link has something next to them. You can see this unordered list symbol that I really don't want to use. So I will see the unordered list should be list style type none. That's all. Now let's reload and let's see. Okay, there is no circle symbol or disk symbol now next to them. I want to add some gap when I'm saying the display is flex. So I'll add some gap here. I'll say 1 rem gap. Now if I reload, I can see there are some gaps. Now I want to bring them in the center. Now how can I bring them center? I can use the display flex things as well, but which one I want to bring center? So inside header, I have this navbar. I want to bring this navbar in the center. So let's just select this header and use display flags. So we need to use this, you know, display flags thing with the parent always. That's all. So where is the header? Here's the header. Let's use the display flags things, display flags, and then let's use the justify content center, align item center. All right. So I really don't want to focus on styling a lot. They are working, that's all. I want to focus on EJS more. Now you know how to use styling in EJS. But at least I will make this, you know, link a little bit better when I hover over them. That's what I want. So let's say nav a hover. I want to change the color of the, you know, link. So I will say it's orange when you hover over, and I want to add some transition so that, you know, hovering is smooth. So transition all 0.3 seconds. That's all. Now let's reload and let's check. Yes, the transition thing is working. Brilliant. Now let's add some padding for the main and footer, and then we are done with the styling. So here is the main. I want to add some footer padding here inside this main. So I will say padding is 1 rem at the top and bottom and 2 rem at the left and right. So let's see whether they work or not. Yes, they are working. And finally, I want to add some padding for the footer. So I'll just copy this and just change the text here as footer. That's all. Yes, good. Well, I could make the height of this main at least, let's say height maybe 90 vertical height. And then I can select this one and give some height to this one. I will say the footer is 5 vertical height, and let's add some height for the header as well, you know, here. So I will say height is 5 vertical height. That's all. So if I reload it now, they should have some height. You can see this one is taking 5 vertical height, this one is taking 90 vertical height, and our footer is here. Now I want to bring the footer in the center. This is something we have done already here, so I can copy and then I can paste in the footer. That's all. All right, now it's in the footer section. I can change the background color of the footer maybe. So for this reason, I'm going to say select the same thing. So I'm going to select everything from here and then, you know, paste it here. Now the background color is something I want, and also the front color or the text color. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to save it and reload it. It's working fine. Now that we are done everything like with designing, but at least the input field is something I want to work here a little bit. So let's select it, you know, the input field, and do the styling with the input field. So here is the input field. I want to make its width a little bit bigger than this, so I will say 40 rem maybe. Let's see how big it can be this time. 40 rem. Yes, it's good. It's good enough. So I can add enter programming language. 40 rem is kind of too much maybe, so I'll make it 20 rem this time, and let's see how it is. Okay, it's better. Now there is no need to show this home page maybe, so let's get rid of this home page text from here. That's all. Okay, and let's reload it. Yes, so we are done with our styling. Now let's get back to the work that what we wanted to do. We are sending some data from here, and we want to receive that data from the server. And we know that when we are going to make any post request, we are going to make in this route /route. The server is going to handle the post request from here, and it will give us a response saying data is created. Let's see whether it does work. So I'm going to give any value, it's totally up to me. Add data, and it's giving me the response. Data is created. Yes, it's working fine. So let's just get the data here from the form in the server. And how you're going to do, you are going to say maybe programming language name, PL name here. And how to get the data from the request.body, I can get the data. So I'll say request.body dot the name of the input field that we have used in the EJS file. So the name was here PL name, so it has to be exactly same. So I'm going to say PL name, and then let's just console log for now. Let's see whether we get the data inside the variable or not. You know, I can do it here. Now if I click here by giving this AA value and I click this button add data, you see the PL name of is saying something is undefined. Okay, it's something we cannot read, and the problem is here. Okay, at least maybe I can get rid of this and I can show you the problem more. So I'll just use the request body here. I'll get rid of everything here, and this time I'm just interested to see what we can find inside this request body. So I'm using the same value, clicking the add data, data is created, but let's check the console log. It's saying undefined. So we are not getting the data inside the request body. And the problem is we are not preparing, for that reason. We are not prepared for receiving the value from the, client side. If you want to receive some form data or JSON data, you have to use some middleware here. And the middleware, you can use the Express middleware, of course. I mean, you could say something like this. Let me show you. app.use. Then you could say express.url encoded, because you want to get some form data, and you can pass some values here, extend true. So this is something optional. So if you add this line, you will be able to receive any form data. But I'm interested about the third-party library which does the same thing, the body parser. So let's install that body parser here. npm install body parser is going to allow us to parse the body data. So I'm going to use that npm install body parser. Now you'll say this is something we can do with the help of Express already, then why I'm installing that body parser third package library? It's because maybe this express.url encoded was already there at the beginning, then they removed from the package, then they added again, and then they removed. So this is what they're doing, so I want to add something that's going to work for a long time, and that's why I'm using the body parser packages here instead of these Express built-in things. So this time I have to grab the body parser because I have installed it. So let's just get the body parser package here, body parser, and then with the help of this body parser I'm going to do the same thing. So this time I will say body parser URL encoded. That's all. So I'm doing the same thing. Now we'll be able to access the data from the request body, and let's see whether it works. This console log works this time. Okay, so moving back, giving this AA value again, add data, data is created, so response is okay, but let's see the output here. So of course we are getting the value from the request body. Now that we are getting the value from request body, we can use request body dot pl name, because this is the name of the input field that we have used here, pl name. So we'll be able to access that data. Right, so let's check one more time. If I give this value add data clicked, then I should access this value in the console, and I'm getting that value. Now that we are getting the value from the form, we can push this value to our array pl names. Okay, let's do it. Let's say it here, pl names, and then use the push function here. We are pushing the data from the input field that we are receiving. We are pushing the data inside our array, and that's all. We are done here. Now that we have the updated array here, so after submitting the form, we are getting the data, we are pushing the data into the array. Now again, we want to go back to this route because we have got our updated data now. So from here, I'm not going to send any status, maybe response.status. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to redirect to the route of this home page. So response.redirect, and then I'm moving to this home page. So someone will post data. Okay, then we'll update the data inside the array, and then we'll go back to this route again so that we can see what are the updated data are available in our annotated list. That's all. Let's see whether it works or not. So I'm going to reload it, and here is the home page. I'm going to add some value, maybe a programming language name is Swift maybe. So I'm going to put it here, Swift, and then I will click the button add data. And you can see it's here. So it's brilliant. So everything that we wanted, it's working perfectly. Now that we know how to use if else, loop, variables, how to do pass data to the EJS file, also get the data from form, how to use the post method, a lot of things, So I think you have good idea about EJS right now. But the last thing I want to show here is how to use layout in EJS, and then we are going to deploy our server, in the Heroku. Okay, so let's see how it works. So for layouting, why layout is important. First of all, let's think about this. If you look at this index.ejs file, you can see the header is almost identical for contact.ejs as well. Yes, and if you consider the footer part as well, so this is the footer part, you can see this is identical to contacts.ejs. So we are just doing something over and over, because this is something we don't want to do, to be honest. you are writing one thing again and again, you are repeating yourself. And programming is something, don't repeat yourself. It tells us, so dry principle, don't repeat yourself. Now EJS is going to help us to avoid this repeating situation. We can create layout and then include those layout wherever we want. So we are going to let's cut this. Let's say go to index.ejs. Let's cut the header part. So from here we know these are going to be identical. So up to this level, everything is the header part. So I'm going to cut everything from here. And now I'm going to create a folder inside the views, and I'm going to name it layout folder. And inside the layout folder, I'm going to create a file. You can name it anything, it's totally up to you. I'm going to say it's a header. So header.ejs. And then I'm going to paste this header code here. Now just save it, and then you can come here and use that layout for sure. And how to use the layout is very simple. The syntax is, you are going to start like this, percentage and this hyphen, and then you have to say include. This is something you must say, and then you are going to end this syntax just like this, this hyphen, and then you are going to say no need hyphen, you are going to say percentage, and then you are going to close it. That's all. But what you want to include here, you have to say it here inside this string. So use the double quotation, and then you can say what you want to include from where. I want to include from layout folder. What I want to include the header. You don't need to say .ejs. Now if I reload it, you'll see still the same thing. Everything is working perfectly, no problem whatsoever. Now I can copy the same thing maybe and then paste it inside this contact.ejs, because this header part is something inside our layout, and the layout name is header. So you can see we are reusing something over and over again. We don't need to create every single time the header. Now no matter how many pages that I'm going to create, I can use this layout header. Very simple things. That's all. Now if I save it, and if I reload it and go to the contact, you will see it's working fine. Absolutely brilliant, no problem whatsoever. Then let's just create the template for footer as well. So I'm going to cut everything from here, going to the layout folder, going to create a footer.ejs file, and I'm going to paste this part here. Now we are ready to use this layout footer. And I'm going to copy from here and then paste it here. Just going to change the text from header to footer. That's all. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other file, index.ejs. So instead of this footer part, I'm going to remove everything and put this one. That's all. Now you can see it's very simple. Here is the header, everything, all the code related to header, all the code related to footer layout is here. So let's just reload and let's see whether everything is working. Everything is working brilliantly. Header is here, footer is here. Now that we are done with this project, we can start deploying our project on Heroku. So first of all, we have to go to Heroku's website. You can see I have searched Heroku, and this is the website that we're going to use. So heroku.com. Now probably you have to sign in if you have not signed in already, or maybe you don't have any account, then you have to create an account and then sign into this Heroku's website. Here you can see I have already created 4 apps or deployed 4 apps on Heroku server. I'm going to create a new one for me. So create a new app. Then you have to give a name that is available. So it's not something you can name anything. That needs to be available. Of course you can name anything, but it must be available. So I'm going to say EJS. If I say EJS, you can see it's not available, so I cannot use this one. I'll say ES 2022. Yes, this one is available. So I'm going to create the app here, and then it has all the instruction that I need to follow. First of all, it's saying I have to use this command. So Heroku login, I'm going to do this here. So make sure you are in the root repository already or root directory already. So I'm going to do it here, Heroku login. Then it will ask me to press any button or use Q button for exiting. So I will use anything other than Q. I'm using spacebar here. And if it is successfully logged in, it will ask you to log in on your browser. Of course, as you can see, it's asking here. I'm going to do it, log in here. And you are logged in now. Now you can start using this other instruction as well. Now here it's saying I'm already logged in. I'll make it big so that you can see at least. So I'm going to pull it here and just like this. Okay, good. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than the others. So yes, it is now bigger, quite enough. Fine. And then what are the next steps? I have to go to the root directory, which I'm already in. I have to initialize the git. So let's follow this step, git initialize here. I'm going to paste it. You can see the git initialize is here. I'm going to make it more bigger. Now you can see what are the next steps. I have to use this one for connecting my repository, local repository, to the the Heroku repository. So let's just paste it here. Fine. Now that I'm done with this step, next step is like git add, git commit, and git push. So I'm going to copy one by one. I'm just going to copy the first one and clear this one, and then git add. That's all. And then the next step is git commit. So I'm going to copy this one and paste it here, and then press enter. So commit is done. And then finally I'm going to do this git push Heroku master. So I have copied it from here. I'm going to paste it here. That's all. Let's just enter here. That's all. And now it's going to start deploying our project. So let's see, when it is successful, it will give us a successful message. There is nothing you can do right now. And now it's successful. It's already saying the build is succeed. So let's see. Let's wait for the final message here. Good. Everything is going so far so good. Let's hope. And it's done. We are done here. Now we can check it whether it's working or not. So let's reload it here. I'm going to reload everything. And yes, we are done. We can open the app and let's hope for the best. Let's see whether it's going to work or not. Now here it's giving some sort of application error. Now when you want to deploy your project to Heroku, you need to use process.env.pod. So this port number that we have specified, it's not something recommended, because here Heroku will give you a port number. So process.env.pod. So this is the first step that you need to do here. Okay. And what is the next thing you have to do? You have to, of course, here I need to type it port. That's all. So the second step is you have to add a proc file in the root folder. So I'm going to do it here. Proc file. I'm going to name it just like this. It has to be exactly same. And then here I'm going to say web and then node index.js. So I want to run the index.js file. That's all. So now that we have created this proc file and we have added the .env or process.env.pod, we are basically done. Now we can start deploying again. So let's try one more time. Now before pushing all the code to Heroku, make sure you have added git ignore file so that it ignores at least the node modules folder. So let's just add one git ignore file here, .git ignore. And then we are going to, of course, the spelling needs to be correct, otherwise you won't see the logo there for git ignore. And here I'm going to say I want to avoid node modules folder when I'm pushing everything to the server. That's all. This is something you must do. And let's hope this time it's going to work. So the steps that we have to follow, again, git add, because we have added new things, then commit, and then we have to push to Heroku master. And if everything goes right this time, if it does shows it's successful, then we'll reload again and we'll see whether things are working or not. So why I did this on purpose, so that you see what are the things you have to do when you are deploying your app on Heroku. Okay, I think we are like done. So let's reload. Still I'm waiting for the final message so that it shows the root directory here, just like this. Now it shows we are done. I'm going to reload it and let's hope for the best. So I'm going to open the app and here you go. You can see the output here. Perfect. Now I'm going to add something and I want to test whether it's working or not. It is working completely. So we are done with deploying, and I believe this project helped you a lot and to understand about EJS fundamental things, how like variables work in EJS, how if else work, how loop work, how layout things work. I think you have learned well from this video. If you love this video, then don't forget to comment and give your feedback so that it inspires me to create more videos like this. Thank you very much, everyone.